First kill intact. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before Commander Valen's observation post. For 3 standard cycles, she had maintained her position at the edge of the neutral zone, monitoring the invisible barrier that separated the Galactic Council's territory from the unpredictable human sectors. The Zephyrian commander adjusted her crystalline visor, her 4 arms working in perfect synchronization across the control panels of her sleek patrol vessel, the Star Whisper. The Council had been clear in their directives: observe, record, but never engage. Humans were considered too volatile, too unpredictable for meaningful contact. Their rapid expansion across their local star systems had caught the attention of every major civilization, but none dared approach. The stories were legendary: humans who fought against impossible odds, who turned disadvantages into strengths, who refused to accept defeat even when logic dictated surrender. Valen had studied the reports meticulously. Humans possessed an unusual combination of aggression and compassion, logic and emotion, that made them utterly unpredictable by Galactic Council standards. They were the only species known to deliberately seek out danger for entertainment, to form emotional bonds with inanimate objects, and to name their military vessels after historical figures, mythological creatures, or sometimes, inexplicably, after food items. A soft chirp from her sensors interrupted her contemplation. An energy signature had appeared at the very edge of her detection range, small, moving erratically, and definitely not authorized to be in this sector. Valen's secondary arms began entering commands while her primary ones adjusted the ship's heading. The signature was approaching the boundary, and worse, it appeared to be human in origin. As the vessel came into visual range, Valen's suspicions were confirmed. It was indeed human. A small scout-class ship with the characteristic patchwork hull that humans seemed to favor. The vessel looked like it had been assembled from spare parts, held together by determination, and what humans called duct tape. Despite its appearance, Valen knew better than to underestimate human engineering. Their ships might look crude, but they often performed beyond all reasonable expectations. Protocol demanded that she warn the vessel away. Valen opened a communication channel, transmitting in the standard human language she had studied. Her voice was crisp, professional, carrying the full authority of her position. Attention, human vessel. You are approaching restricted Galactic Council space. Alter your course immediately. The response came after a moment of static. Oh, hey there. Sorry about that. Navigation system's been acting up. I'm Captain Jake Harrison of the good ship Wanderlust. Didn't mean to cause any trouble. The casual tone caught Valen off guard. She had expected either military precision or aggressive posturing. This human sounded like he was discussing a minor traffic violation rather than a potential interstellar incident. She maintained her professional demeanor. Captain Harrison, you will alter course immediately. This space is forbidden to your species by council decree. Yeah, about that. Jake's voice continued, still remarkably relaxed. See, I'm actually kind of lost. Star charts got scrambled in an ion storm last week. Been flying by the seat of my pants ever since. Don't suppose you could point me toward the nearest human outpost? Valen's training had not prepared her for this. The human wasn't threatening, wasn't demanding, wasn't even particularly concerned about being confronted by an alien patrol vessel. She found herself oddly curious about this unusual behavior. Your navigational difficulties are not my concern, Captain. You will reverse course now. There was a pause, then Jake spoke again. You know, you have a really nice voice. Very professional, but there's something else there too. Are you the cute girl who's been tracking me for the last hour? Valen's 4 arms froze mid-motion. Her species didn't have the same concept of facial flushing as humans, but she felt the equivalent, a rapid fluctuation in her bioluminescent patches. What did you call me? Cute girl, Jake repeated, his tone suggesting he found nothing unusual about the comment. Sorry if that's too forward. It's just, you know, you've got this whole authoritative thing going on, but I bet you're adorable when you're not being all official. In her entire military career, through countless diplomatic encounters and security briefings, Valen had never once been called cute or girl. Her species didn't even have gender designations in the same way humans did. The sheer audacity of the comment left her momentarily speechless. "I am Commander Valen of the Galactic Council's security force," she finally managed, trying to regain her composure. "Your comments are highly inappropriate and—" "Valen," Jake interrupted, rolling the name around like he was tasting it. "That's beautiful. Matches the voice. Look, I really am sorry about wandering into your space. Tell you what, how about you escort me to the border? That way you can make sure I actually leave, and I get to chat with you a bit longer. Win-win, right?" The logic was sound, even if the delivery was unlike anything in her training scenarios. Valen found herself considering the proposal. It would ensure the human actually left Council space, and she could gather intelligence about human behavior patterns. For purely professional reasons, of course. "Very well," she said, inputting the necessary commands. "Follow my trajectory exactly. Any deviation will be considered a hostile act." "You got it, Commander Cute. Commander Valen," Jake corrected himself, though she could hear the smile in his voice. "Lead the way." As the two ships began their journey toward the border, Jake maintained a constant stream of conversation. He talked about his ship, held together with hope and expired warranty seals, his mission, supposedly searching for rare minerals, but really just exploring, and his opinion on alien technology, probably amazing, but where's the cup holders? Despite herself, Valen found the humans' casual approach refreshing. Every other species she had encountered maintained strict diplomatic protocols. They were formal, cautious, and utterly predictable. Jake Harrison was none of those things. "So, Commander," Jake said after describing his ship's temperamental heating system, "what made you join the military?" "Family tradition. Call to serve. Really cool uniform." The personal question caught her off guard again. "That is not relevant to our current situation." "Come on," Jake pressed, his tone playful. "We've got at least 20 minutes before we reach the border. Might as well get to know each other. I'll start. I became a pilot because I wanted to see what's out there. Every star could have something amazing behind it. Plus, the recruiter said there would be adventure. Didn't mention the amount of paperwork, though." Despite her best efforts, Valen found herself responding. "I joined because I believed in order, in maintaining peace through structure and protocol." "Boring reason, but honest," Jake observed. "Bet there's more to it, though. Nobody becomes a commander just because they like filing reports." He was right, and that irritated her. How did this human, who she'd known for less than an hour, see through her careful professional facade? "My homeworld was saved by the Council's intervention during a planetary crisis. I wish to serve those who had helped us." "Now that's more like it," Jake said warmly. "Hero origin story. I like it." "I am not a hero," Valen protested. "I am simply performing my duty. In my experience, those are usually the best kind of heroes," Jake replied. "The ones who don't think they are." They continued their journey, and despite Valen's best efforts to maintain professional distance, she found herself drawn into conversation. Jake had a way of making everything seem less serious, less threatening. He asked questions about her ship's technology, but seemed more interested in whether the seats were comfortable. He inquired about the Galactic Council, but wanted to know if they had good coffee. "You humans are very strange," she finally said, surprising herself with the observation. "Thank you," Jake replied cheerfully. "We try. But honestly, you aliens are the weird ones. All this formality and protocol. Don't you ever just want to relax and have a normal conversation?" "This is not normal," Valen asked. "Well, it's getting there," Jake said. "But you're still all stiff and formal. Though I did get you to tell me your hero origin story, so progress." As they approached the border, Valen felt an unexpected reluctance. Once they reached the boundary, Jake would return to human space, and she would resume her patrol. The prospect seemed surprisingly dull. "There," she announced, highlighting the boundary on both their screens. "You will cross here and maintain your heading for 3 light hours. That will put you back in human territory." "Right," Jake said, and for the first time, his voice lost some of its casual cheer. "Well, Commander Valen, it's been a genuine pleasure. Thanks for not shooting me on sight." "That would have caused significant paperwork," she replied, attempting humor in the way she'd observed him doing. Jake laughed, a warm sound that made her bioluminescent patches flicker. "There we go. I knew you had a sense of humor in there. Tell you what, I patrol this sector pretty regularly. If you're ever in the mood for more scintillating conversation about cup holders and coffee, tune to frequency 142.8. It's an old human emergency channel nobody uses anymore. I cannot guarantee." Valen began. I know, protocol, and all that. But the offer stands. Besides, someone needs to make sure I don't accidentally wander into council space again, right?" Before she could respond, Jake's ship accelerated toward the border. Just before crossing, his voice came through one last time. "And Commander, you really do have the cutest command voice in the galaxy. Stay safe out there." The communication cut off as the Wanderlust crossed into human space, leaving Valen alone with her thoughts and a strangely elevated core temperature. She stared at the empty space where the human ship had been, trying to process what had just happened. For the first time in her military career, she had engaged in extended conversation with a human. He had called her cute, repeatedly. He had made her laugh, or at least attempt to. He had treated first contact between their species like a casual encounter between neighbors. And strangest of all, she found herself already entering frequency 142.8 into her ship's communication array. For monitoring purposes, she told herself. Purely for monitoring purposes. As she returned to her patrol route, Valen couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had just changed. The universe felt a little smaller, a little less divided. And perhaps, though she wouldn't admit it even to herself, a little more interesting. Breaking barriers. 3 days had passed since the incident with Captain Jake Harrison, and Commander Valen found herself performing her duties with mechanical precision while her mind wandered to frequencies she had no business monitoring. The bridge of the Star Whisper hummed with its usual efficiency, but the commander's thoughts were far from routine patrol protocols. She had replayed their conversation dozens of times, analyzing every word, every inflection. The human's casual disregard for proper first contact procedures should have been alarming. Instead, she found it intriguing. No species had ever approached the Galactic Council with such nonchalance. They came with either fear or aggression, respect or hostility. Jake Harrison had come with jokes about cup holders. Her second-in-command, Sub-Commander Thrix, noticed her distraction. The young Zephyrian's bioluminescent patches flickered with concern. "Commander, your efficiency ratings have decreased by 3.7% over the past 3 cycles. Are you experiencing system malfunctions?" Valen straightened in her command chair, all 4 arms adjusting various controls to appear busy. "Negative, Sub-Commander. Simply analyzing recent tactical data." "The human incursion?" Thrix asked, his tone carefully neutral. "I reviewed your report. Most unusual behavior for their species." "Indeed," Valen agreed, then caught herself about to elaborate on Jake's personality. She cleared her throat, a sound like crystalline chimes. "Maintain standard patrol pattern. I will be in my ready room reviewing protocols." Once alone, Valen found herself staring at the communication console. Frequency 142.8 seemed to pulse on the display, taunting her with its availability. She had told herself repeatedly that monitoring it would be a violation of regulations, a breach of the very order she had sworn to uphold. Her hand moved toward the controls, then stopped. What would she even say if he was there? What if he wasn't? Which possibility concerned her more? A soft alert chimed through the ready room. "Commander," Thrix's voice came through the comm. "We're detecting an energy signature at the border. It appears to be the same human vessel from 3 days ago." Valen was on the bridge before Thrix finished speaking. On the main display, the familiar patchwork hull of the Wanderlust drifted just inside Council space. Her bioluminescent patches flared with an emotion she didn't want to name. "He has violated the border again," Thrix observed. "Shall I arm weapons?" "Negative," Valen said quickly. "Too quickly. I will handle this personally. Maintain position." She opened a communication channel, defaulting to the formal hailing frequency. "Captain Harrison, you are once again in violation of Galactic Council space. Explain yourself." Static filled the channel for a moment. Then Jake's familiar voice came through, sheepish but warm. "Hey, Commander, would you believe my navigation system is acting up again?" "No," she replied flatly. "I would not." "Fair enough," Jake admitted. "Truth is, I've been hanging around the border hoping to run into you again. Figured this was the most reliable way to get your attention." Valen felt her patches flicker erratically. He had deliberately violated interstellar law just to speak with her. The logical part of her mind screamed that this was exactly the kind of reckless behavior that made humans so dangerous. Another part, one she was trying very hard to ignore, found it oddly flattering. "You do realize that repeated violations could be construed as an act of aggression," she said, trying to maintain official protocol. "I'm one guy in a ship held together with spit and determination," Jake replied. "I don't think I'm much of a threat to the mighty Galactic Council. Besides, I brought coffee this time. Well, what passes for coffee out here? Want to compare terrible beverage options?" The sheer absurdity of the situation struck Valen. Here was a human, casually violating interstellar borders to invite her for coffee. Her training had no protocols for this. "I cannot simply have coffee with you," she said, though her resolve was weakening. "There are procedures, regulations." "Look," Jake interrupted gently. "I've been thinking about our conversation. You know what struck me most? You sounded lonely. Command is isolating. I get that. But maybe, just maybe, we could both use a friend out here in the black." The word hit her like a meteor impact. Friend. When was the last time she had simply talked to someone as a friend, not a superior or subordinate? "I will escort you to the border," she said finally. "During that time, we may communicate." "That's all I'm asking," Jake said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Setting course to follow your lead, Commander." As their ships began moving, Jake started talking about his week. He'd discovered a new mineral that turned out to be common salt. The scanner was very excited about it. Had a lengthy argument with his ship's AI about the proper temperature for sleeping quarters. It insists on what it calls optimal, but I call freezing, and had spent 3 hours trying to repair a coffee maker with parts from a broken translator, which explains why it now only makes coffee while speaking ancient Velothi. Despite herself, Valen found herself laughing, actually laughing, at his stories. The sound surprised them both. "Whoa," Jake said softly. "That's beautiful. Like wind chimes made of starlight." "You cannot simply say such things," Valen protested, her patches flickering rapidly. "Why not? It's true. Your whole species is basically living mood rings, which is awesome, by the way. Very efficient communication." "We are not mood rings, whatever those are," Valen said, trying to sound offended but failing. "Bioluminescent emotional displays are a sophisticated evolutionary adaptation." "So, mood rings," Jake concluded cheerfully. "But seriously, why can't I compliment you? Is there some protocol against depreciating beauty?" Valen found herself at a loss. There wasn't, technically, any such protocol. But centuries of formal interaction between species had created unspoken rules about maintaining professional distance. Jake seemed determined to ignore every single one. "Tell me about Earth," she said, changing the subject. "Your homeworld." Ah, Earth. Big blue marble, mostly harmless. 7 continents, arguing about everything from politics to the proper way to make pizza. We've got oceans that cover most of the surface, which seemed like a waste until we figured out underwater cities. Oh, and we have these things called dogs. 4-legged creatures that basically evolved to be our best friends. You'd love them. They're loyal, adorable, and terrible at following protocols. Like humans. Exactly like humans, but with more fur and better attitudes. They talked for the entire journey to the border. Jake shared stories of human exploration, their mistakes and triumphs, their ridiculous traditions and surprising innovations. In return, Valen found herself describing Zephyrian culture, their crystal cities that sang in harmonic frequencies, their collective decision-making process that took emotions into account through bioluminescent voting. Your people sound amazing, Jake said sincerely. Why do you all keep everyone at arm's length? 4 arm's length, in your case. The Galactic Council values stability, Valen explained. Emotional connections between species can lead to complications, conflicts of interest, or understanding, cooperation, friendship, Jake countered. Can't have progress without a little chaos. They'd reached the border too quickly. Valen stared at the invisible line on her display, knowing she should send him across and return to her patrol. Instead, she found herself speaking. Frequency 142.8, she said quietly. I will monitor it. For security purposes. For security purposes, Jake agreed solemnly, though she could hear his suppressed joy. Can't have humans randomly wandering into council space without supervision. Precisely, Valen said, her patches glowing with an emotion she was finally beginning to recognize. Until next time, Captain Harrison. Jake, he corrected. Friends use first names, right? Until next time. Jake, she said, testing the name. Looking forward to it, Valen. As the Wanderlust crossed back into human space, Valen sat in her command chair, staring at the stars. Sub-Commander Thrix approached cautiously. Commander, your patches are displaying an unusual pattern. Are you well? Valen considered the question. She had just spent hours in unauthorized communication with a human. She had laughed, shared personal information, and made plans for future contact. By every measure of her training, she should feel guilt, concern, or at least professional anxiety. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Something warm and light, and altogether pleasant. Yes, Thrix, she said finally. I believe I am very well indeed. That night, as she filed her official report, Valen made a decision. She carefully documented the human incursion, the escort to the border, and the successful resolution. She mentioned nothing of coffee makers that spoke ancient languages, of jokes about mood rings, or of the friendship developing across the vast divide of space and species. But she did note, in the section for ongoing security measures, that she would be monitoring frequency 142.8 for potential human activity. For security purposes, of course. Over the following weeks, their conversations became regular occurrences. Jake would approach the border, always careful not to cross it, and they would talk as their ships drifted in parallel. He shared human music, chaotic but oddly compelling. She explained Zephyrian poetry, mathematical patterns that created emotional resonance. He told her about human holidays, celebrating everything from historical events to harvests to a saint who delivered presents to children. She described the festival of first light, when all Zephyrians' bioluminescence synchronized to create a planetary aurora. Slowly, without either fully realizing it, they were building a bridge across the divide that had separated their species. Other patrol commanders began to notice the human ship that regularly appeared at the border, but never crossed. Some filed reports, but Valen's impeccable service record and the lack of actual violations kept any serious investigation at bay. Then came the day that changed everything. Valen was in the middle of her patrol when her emergency sensors screamed to life. A massive energy surge had been detected in human space, the signature of a ship's core going critical. The location was all too familiar. "Jake," she whispered, her patches flaring white with fear. Without thinking, without considering protocols or regulations, she ordered maximum thrust toward the border. As her ship crossed into human space, the first Galactic Council vessel to do so in decades, she found the Wanderlust drifting powerless, its hull breached, emergency beacons flashing. "Jake," she called over every frequency. "Jake, respond." Static, then a weak signal. "Hey, cute girl. Fancy meeting you here." Relief flooded through her in waves of blue and gold. What happened? "Reactor breach. Probably should have replaced those couplings last month. I've got maybe 20 minutes of life support left." 20 minutes. Not enough time for human rescue ships to arrive. Valen made her decision in an instant. "I'm bringing you aboard." "Valen, you can't." "The regulations." "Hang the regulations," she said, surprising herself with the human expression she'd learned from him. "I'm not letting you die out here." The rescue was textbook perfect. Valen's training took over as she maneuvered her ship, extended the docking tube, and brought Jake aboard. It wasn't until he stood in her airlock, helmet under his arm, that the full reality of what she'd done hit her. A human was aboard a Galactic Council vessel. She had violated not just protocols but fundamental laws of separation. Jake looked around the airlock with obvious wonder, then his eyes found her. For the first time, they were seeing each other in person, not through screens and across the void. "Hi," he said softly, his voice different without the communication system's interference. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined." Valen's patches cycled through a rainbow of emotions. "You are. Shorter than I calculated." Jake laughed, the sound filling the small space. "Yeah, I get that a lot. Humans aren't exactly the tallest species in the galaxy." As she led him to the medical bay, Valen's mind raced. She would have to report this. There would be consequences, severe ones. Her career, everything she had worked for, could be over. But looking at Jake, alive and safe because of her actions, she found she didn't care. Word of the rescue spread quickly. Within hours, both human and Galactic Council ships were converging on their location. Valen stood on her bridge, Jake beside her, despite regulations about non-crew on the command deck, as they faced a wall of incoming communications. The first was from Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Force. The weathered woman's face appeared on screen, her expression unreadable. "Commander Valen, you have violated the primary directive of separation between our species. You have a human aboard your vessel. Explain yourself." Before Valen could respond, Jake stepped forward. "Admiral, the commander saved my life. She put everything on the line to help another being in distress. Isn't that exactly the kind of galaxy we want to live in?" The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "Captain Harrison, I might have known you'd be at the center of this. Stand by." The next communication was from the Galactic Council itself. Supreme Coordinator Zex appeared, his ancient features stern behind crystalline armor. "Commander Valen, you stand accused of violating the separation protocols. What do you have to say for yourself?" Valen straightened, all four arms at attention. "I take full responsibility for my actions, Supreme Coordinator. I crossed into human space and brought a human aboard my vessel. I did so to save a life. The protocols exist for a reason," Zex intoned. "To prevent the chaos that emotional connections between species." "With respect, Supreme Coordinator," Valen interrupted, causing gasps from her bridge crew. "The protocols are wrong." Silence fell. Even Jake looked shocked. Valen continued, her patches glowing with conviction. "For weeks, I have been in communication with Captain Harrison. In that time, I have learned more about humanity than in all our years of observation. They are not the chaotic force we feared. They are creative, compassionate, and yes, sometimes reckless. But they are also capable of great friendship, loyalty, and understanding." She looked at Jake, drawing strength from his encouraging nod. I violated protocols not because I disregard order, but because I have discovered something more important than blind adherence to rules. I have discovered that the barriers between us are artificial. We are all beings trying to find our way in a vast and often lonely universe. The Supreme Coordinator's expression remained unreadable. You would risk everything on this belief. I already have, Valen replied simply. Long moments passed. Then, surprisingly, Admiral Chen spoke. Supreme Coordinator, if I may. Humanity has long wondered why the Galactic Council kept us at arm's length. We've respected your borders, but we've also felt the isolation. Perhaps it's time to reconsider these protocols. Indeed, came another voice. Commander Thek of the Altarian fleet appeared on another screen. My people have also questioned the necessity of such strict separation. Fear of the unknown has governed our policies for too long. More voices joined in, from various species, various fleets, all expressing similar sentiments. The wall of separation, it seemed, had been cracking for some time. Valen and Jake had simply been the first to step through. Finally, Supreme Coordinator Zek spoke. It appears this is a conversation that has been needed for some time. Commander Valen, Captain Harrison, you will report to the Council Station. Not for punishment, but for discussion. Perhaps it is time to build bridges instead of walls. As the various communications ended, Valen slumped in her chair, patches flickering with exhaustion and relief. Jake placed a hand on her shoulder, the first physical contact between their species in recorded history. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For being brave enough to break the rules. For saving my life. For being my friend. Valen placed one of her hands over his. Thank you for showing me that the universe is far more interesting with a little chaos. 6 months later, the first official human Galactic Council Cultural Exchange Center opened on a station at the former border. At the dedication ceremony, Ambassador Valen stood next to Ambassador Jake Harrison as they cut the ceremonial ribbon together. You know, Jake whispered as the crowd applauded, I never did properly thank you for calling me cute that first day. Valen's patches flickered with amusement. I did not call you cute. You called me cute. Repeatedly. Details, Jake grinned. The important thing is that cuteness was acknowledged. As they walked into the center together, human and Zephyrian, former soldier and wandering explorer, now ambassadors of a new age, Valen reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy felt smaller now, but somehow also more full of possibility. All because a lost human had crossed a border and a lonely commander had chosen conversation over protocol. The stars above continued their eternal dance, but for the first time in centuries, the beings below them danced together. Jake, Valen said as they greeted the first mixed group of human and alien visitors. Yeah, your navigation system was never really broken, was it? Jake's grin was answer enough. Sometimes, Valen thought, the best discoveries come from getting a little lost.